Welcome to this explainer. Look, today we're taking a tour of a really fascinating corporate factory. But, we're not looking at an assembly line pumping out cars or smartphones. This is a factory where raw human intent goes in on one end and measurable, real-world outcomes actually come out the other. We're going to dive deep into the architectural blueprints of an entity called SAG Global. And what they've done is literally re-engineer how strategy and AI work together to execute at just a massive scale. To really get this, we kind of need to shatter how you normally think about generative AI. When most of us use AI right now, we type a prompt, we get text back, and we treat that language as the final product. But SE Global, they operate on this absolutely foundational core principle. They say, language is not output, language is an input to a controlled execution system. They do not want a conversation, they want a spark that triggers a highly controlled chain reaction. So here's our roadmap for today. We're going to execute this explainer step by step. We'll hit the SE Global blueprint, move into the human strategy engine, talk about redefining AI, look at the execution pipeline, and finally wrap up with governance and control gates. All right, section 1, the SE Global blueprint. Let's look at their macro vision. The really crucial point is right in their completely uncompromising operating principles. Think about these two specifically: systems over people and execution over intention. I mean, in a normal corporate culture, you usually hear a lot of fluff about empowering people, right? Or valuing good intentions. Well, SE Global takes this radically different, super engineering-focused approach. They firmly believe that reliable systems scale way better than individual heroics. And the best intentions of the world? They literally mean nothing if they aren't actually executed. It's all driven by data, outcomes, and integrity. Moving on to section 2, the human strategy engine. This is the brain of the whole machine. Just take a second to think about the sheer ambition and scale of a structure like this. We're talking about a massive C-suite led by a founder and CEO who strictly focuses on vision, strategy, and capital. Beneath that, there are 7 distinct, incredibly structured organizational divisions. We've got everything from operations and tech to growth and marketing, even people and culture. This is definitely not some chaotic startup figuring things out on the fly. This is a deeply established, highly regimented hierarchy built specifically to govern a complex execution machine. Now, to keep from getting totally lost in a giant org chart, let's focus on the foundation of that structure. These are the 6 specialized centers of excellence, or COEs. Think of these as centralized hubs of pure expertise. So instead of every single division trying to figure out its own AI tools or its own data standards, these COEs act like a central nervous system. They cover everything from AI and automation to ESG and sustainability, and they drive best practices and continuous improvement across the whole company. Okay, section 3, redefining AI. Because remember, this is not a chatbot. So there's a really stark contrast here between the chatty, kind of hallucination-prone AI we're all used to and the rigid execution machine SE Global built. Their system identity explicitly states it is not a chatbot. It's not a content system. It values determinism over flexibility and total auditability over speed. They are deliberately trading away all the fun, creative conversational stuff in exchange for absolute mathematical certainty and flawless execution. Let's get into the weeds with section 4, the execution pipeline. This is the engine room in practice. This brings us to the 12-step core functional stack. SE Global calls this a multi-model cognitive relay architecture, which sounds complex, but it basically operates exactly like a super disciplined assembly line. Intent goes in at the top, it passes through highly specialized nodes, gets validated, orchestrated, executed, and finally measured. It's a completely closed-loop system designed to take messy real-world requests and actually churn out measured outcomes. Let's break down how this builds, starting with the first 3 steps. Step 1 is where the human intent enters as natural language. But immediately at step 2, that messy human language gets hit by Claude. Claude's only job right here is to force that input into a structured JSON-bound format, so it becomes highly organized, machine-readable data. And only after the intent is perfectly structured does it move to step 3, where an OpenAI GPT model is finally allowed to evaluate things and select the best course of action. It's always structure first, decision second. Now, this is fascinating. They use specific rival AI models for very dedicated, heavily restricted roles. Steps 4 and 5 are these optional expansion nodes. If a problem needs wider solution space expansion, they route it to Google's Gemini. If it needs alternative reasoning for weird edge cases, it goes to DeepSeek. Massive inputs get handled by Kimi for context compression. And the unbreakable rule here is that no AI node has any autonomous authority outside its explicitly assigned function. It is literally a perfect division of labor. Right, so once the AI actually makes a decision, we move out of the thinking phase and into the doing phase. Down at step 7, the system orchestrates the workflow using automation tools like N8N or LangGraph. Step 8 is where it executes the actions in the real world through APIs and system integrations. And then step 9, that permanently logs every single state, decision, and artifact into a PostgreSQL database. You have total traceability from the very first thought to the final action. Which brings us to section 5, governance and control gates, the nervous system guardrails. So right smack in the middle of that 12-step pipeline, specifically at step 6, sits something called Scrutiny AI V1. This is the ultimate execution gatekeeper. Before any real-world orchestration can even begin, Scrutiny AI steps in to validate the original intent, double-check the logic, and ensure total compliance. It's this uncompromising security checkpoint that stops bad actions dead in their tracks before they reach the real world. Scrutiny AI operates on a really strict system of state transitions. An action moves from pending to validating, and from there it can be held for review, blocked entirely, or passed. The hard rule here is absolute. It's basically written in stone. Only a passed state from Scrutiny AI can trigger execution. 0 exceptions. If it doesn't pass the gatekeeper, it just doesn't happen. Oh, and I absolutely love this detail about their system constraint model. SE Global enforces those structured JSON-bound schemas so strictly that if an AI model acts like a normal chatbot, like if it just gives a helpful unstructured text response, the system flags it as a complete failure. No joke. Unstructured output is literally treated as a system error. It has to be structured, it has to be validated, and it has to be traceable. And that perfectly tees up the operational law governing everything SE Global does. Knowledge without implementation is invalid system output. Every single output has to map to a workflow and bind to outcome tracking metrics. Just having a smart idea, not enough. Generating a brilliant 50-page strategy doc, not enough. If that knowledge isn't implemented and measured, the system flat out rejects it. It just proves their ultimate goal, driving continuous, measurable, real-world results. So, we've just toured the blueprints of a true execution machine. We've seen exactly how SE Global strips away all that conversational fluff of AI to build a deterministic, heavily governed pipeline that guarantees real-world outcomes. As you think about your own workflows, your own strategies, and how you deploy technology, ask yourself this final question. If language is no longer just an output, but the actual input to your execution system, what will you execute next? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.